When the rain taps on your window and the night grows darker than usual, ancient secrets begin to whisper through the wind. You're about to hear one of those stories that were never meant to be told. But since you're already here, stay till the end. Subscribe if you dare, and turn on notifications. The next story might just be about you.
Today was that day, my first day at the prestigious medical college where I had just enrolled as a freshman. The morning greeted me with a sunny sky and a gentle August breeze. Leaves had already taken on a greenish-yellow hue as summer slowly transitioned into autumn. I felt scared yet simultaneously joyful. The path to becoming a doctor promised to be difficult, but I longed to take the next step toward my dream of becoming a forensic pathologist, for medicine and criminology were my true passions. I was heading to my first class, topographical anatomy, when I accidentally bumped into someone, dropping my textbooks and immediately rushing to pick them up. "Sorry," I exclaimed. "I didn't mean to." "It's okay," replied the person, helping gather the books. I looked up and immediately recognized his face. It was Jared, a freshman med student who had studied with me at the pre-med preparatory program. He was quite tall, with chestnut curls, freckles, and a chipped tooth, specifically his right upper central incisor. I was amazed to discover we had enrolled at the same college, though I wasn't surprised he had been accepted. Academically, he had always been an overachiever. "Jared," I said, still astonished, "had no idea you study here too." "Definitely, Andrea. Isn't it great? Let's hurry up and collect these books before we're late," said Jared. I glanced at my watch. It was 7:57 a.m. and class started at 8. Crap. We'll be late. Together, we sprinted to the Natural Sciences building and rushed up the stairs to room 212, where the lecture was held. We entered the spacious auditorium, where already sat other medical students, about 30 people, no less. Some were concentratedly reading textbooks. Others were casually chatting while waiting for the session to begin. Jared and I settled together in the last available seats at the back of the hall, not surprisingly since we barely made it. Exactly at 8 o'clock, the professor rose from his chair and announced the beginning of the class. It was a lanky old man in his 60s, with tousled gray hair and enormous glasses constantly sliding down his nose. His white coat hung loosely on his thin, fragile frame like a baggy shirt. "Welcome to topographical anatomy, freshmen," rasped the professor with a hoarse voice. "I'm Dr. Hilton, your biology instructor for this semester. Open your textbooks to page 253. 2 hours later, the lecture ended, and we were given a 10-minute break before our work in the morgue, where we were supposed to study and dissect actual human bodies. I saw a corpse for the first time during my 3rd year of undergraduate studies. Seeing a dead, skinned human body in front of me was an unforgettable experience. Finally came the moment to enter the morgue. As soon as I crossed the threshold, my nose was pierced by the sharp, repulsive smell of human remains and formaldehyde used to preserve tissues from decomposition. In the room stood 4 temperature-controlled steel tanks containing corpses, 2 male and 2 female. In the freezer at the end of the room, accessible only to Dr. Hilton, lay other bodies. He explained that he would occasionally swap them out so we could see how much anatomical variation exists among individuals. I carefully examined each corpse, trying to identify and name all structures, from the splenic artery to the brachiocephalic trunk. There were so many vessels, organs, and muscles to memorize for the upcoming practical exam that my head was spinning. And then I noticed something strange. Looking closer, I discovered what appeared to be a gaping wound in one corpse's temporal region, extending several inches inward, like someone had plunged a large knife into the skull. Out of curiosity, I called Dr. Hilton and asked about it. He muttered with a puzzled expression. I don't know how that happened. Probably someone damaged the corpse. Soon after, the session ended, and I returned to my dormitory to continue studying. But try as I might, I couldn't get what I'd seen out of my head. As a future forensic pathologist, I was observant and logical, and something deep inside told me this injury couldn't have been the result of some prank. No one would just go around poking sharp objects into a corpse's head. And maybe... No. Stop thinking foolish thoughts. Dr. Hilton would never do something like that. I pushed the thoughts aside and decided I was probably just tired. I went to bed early to avoid risking being late in the morning and fell asleep within minutes. The next day, I arrived on time, but Jared wasn't there. I shrugged, figuring he was running late again. I glanced at Dr. Hilton. He looked like a zombie, barely holding himself together. Bags under his eyes, hair even more disheveled, as if he hadn't slept all night and barely crawled out of a war zone. 15 minutes into the lecture, and Jared still hadn't arrived. I tapped the shoulder of a classmate sitting in front of me. "Hey," I whispered, "where's Jared?" He should have been here by now. The student turned around and answered, "You haven't heard. He already dropped out." I couldn't believe my ears. Of all people, Jared was the last person I imagined abandoning medicine. He was the smartest and most determined person I knew. He scored the highest possible mark on the MCAT and received numerous scholarships. There was no way he would quit after just the first day. I secretly took out my phone and texted Jared asking whether it was true. By the end of the lecture and lab work, there was still no response. Something wasn't right. Jared always responded quickly. I put my phone away, wondering where he could be. Only 2 days remained until the practical exam, and I decided to stay after class in the laboratory to spend more time practicing on the cadavers. I became so engrossed that I lost track of time. I snapped out of it. It was already 3 a.m. I checked my phone. Still nothing. I was about to close the tank when suddenly froze. In the corpse, I noticed something. My eyes instantly widened. Icy terror gripped my heart. The corpse had a chipped tooth, specifically a broken piece of the right upper central incisor, exactly like Jared's. "No," I whispered, trembling. "It can't be. Just a coincidence." Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging the room into nighttime darkness. Only moonlight from the window provided faint illumination. Behind me, a door creaked. I turned around and saw a silhouette, but because of the shadows, I couldn't make out the face. The unknown figure let out a twisted, disgusting laugh that gradually transformed into mad laughter. Chills ran down my spine. The figure stepped out of the shadows into the moonlight, and I saw a sinister grin. "Dr. Hilton?" I squeaked. "Why are you here? What's so funny?" Hilton licked his lips with inexplicable delight and spoke in a disturbing tone. "Miss Andrea, my dear, You'll make the perfect addition to my collection." I didn't want to believe it, but I was right. Hilton had killed Jared and prepared his body for the class. I took a step back from the madman. You... I stammered. "Exactly," he proudly said. "I killed your friend Jared and stripped him down to meat and bones." I must admit, he put up quite a fight. "But a girl like you won't be any problem." He pulled a sharp object from his lab coat pocket, apparently a 20-inch machete covered in dried blood, and lunged at me with all his strength. I screamed and fell to the floor, desperately pushing his arm with the machete away from me, which he tried to drive into my eye. He breathed heavily, clearly enjoying the thought of carnage. Despite his frail appearance, Hilton proved to have much more strength than I expected. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a scalpel on the floor, desperately reaching for it with my fingers, but it was slightly out of reach. I could barely touch it with my fingertips, but couldn't grasp it. My strength was fading. The machete was getting closer, and Hilton's breathing became heavier. He anticipated the final blow. I almost resigned myself to my fate when suddenly remembered the blood, sweat, and tears I had sacrificed for my dream. Sleepless nights, hours spent studying textbooks, all the sacrifices made for this goal. Anger flared inside me, and adrenaline surged through my body. I reached even further. My shoulder seemed to tear from its socket. With my fingertips, I grabbed the scalpel and clenched it in my hand. Shunk. For a moment, I didn't understand what had happened. The blade had plunged directly into Hilton's jugular vein. Blood sprayed like a fountain. He choked, gasping for air, and collapsed, clutching his neck, writhing in agony. After several monstrous seconds, he finally lay still. I sat in complete silence, seemingly for hours, trying to comprehend what had just occurred. Coming to my senses, I burst into tears and rocked back and forth like a lost child, pleading for all of this to turn out to be a nightmare. And then I remembered the freezer with the other corpses. I searched Hilton's pockets and found the key. Approaching the door, I froze, taking a deep, shuddering breath, then slowly unlocked the lock. I prepared myself to see the worst, familiar bodies that had become victims of his barbarism. But what I saw was even worse, and imprinted itself in my memory forever. In the corner of the freezer, sitting among the other skinned corpses, was a mutilated body, but it was still alive and groaning. "Help me." I make my living by killing people. I've never been truly afraid in all these years, until today. I know, it sounds dramatic, but just hear me out. I won't go into all the personal crap that led to this story. Not because I'm afraid of boring you. I'm sure you'd find it interesting. I'm quite an interesting guy. It's just none of your business. Only one thing matters. I've always loved fighting, but street fights don't pay the bills, and being broke all the time got old. That's how I ended up killing people, and I slipped into the role like a fish into water. I work clean, and I don't touch anyone who hasn't been ordered. I have intermediaries. Clients go through them, not directly to me. I don't deal well with people. If a job suits me, I take it. And that's how this case started, too. I don't know where to begin with such a story, but probably the most logical place is the beginning. Morning. I live in a small room above a cafe called Virgo. The name sounds cute, I know, but it smells like hot dogs and cat piss. Doesn't matter to me. I only sleep there, and you can't smell anything while asleep. I woke up early on Sunday. There was frost on the window, so I threw on my coat and quickly went downstairs for a coffee at Virgo. I had a meeting. Early, said Mike, the owner. He's quite a talker. Thought your coffin doesn't open before 9. I laughed along with him. Some days, you remember, other people are just trying to live and make the world nicer. Other days, you forget. On that day, I remembered. Mike burned the coffee, my reward for politeness. Next time he cracks a joke, I'll punch him right in his fucking face. When I arrived, the intermediary was already waiting. We don't like meeting in the same place more than once every couple of months. Today, it was a park. He was pushing his daughter on the swings. As I approached, I heard her ask who I was. "A friend," he said. "1 second, sweetheart." He walked over toward the slide. The girl stayed sitting on the swing, her short legs barely reaching the ground in her sneakers, twisting her head like an owl to keep watching us. While talking to her father, I kept smiling at her over his shoulder. She didn't smile back. I wanted to pull a face, but held myself back. "Do you have one yourself?" he asked, lighting a cigarette. "Don't ask questions like that," I replied. "All right," he said, reaching into his inner pocket. "Here." He handed me a piece of paper with an address. "At 5. Get rid of him." I nodded and waved at the girl. She just swung and watched. The target, a woman. I don't kill women often, but it doesn't bother me. Every Sunday at exactly 5, she goes swimming in a private indoor pool, winter, spring, summer, autumn. Obviously, she's got money. Doesn't matter to me. I'm proud that I don't know anything about a target, except what's necessary. Not from some moral high ground. I've killed both acquaintances and friends. It's just not interesting. What surprised me was that the pool was located in an industrial area. Looking back now, that should have been the first warning bell, but I don't blame myself. They've sent me anywhere, from elite clubs to drug dens, and the truth remains the same. Anyone, absolutely anyone, is only one mistake away from death. I still had time, so I returned home to make special preparations. With one hand on the broomstick and the other on my sports bag, I reached the dumpster behind Virgo in the alley. Lifted the lid. The rat paws scurried into the darkness. I raised the broom and slammed it down hard onto the fat bastard stuck nose deep in a noodle box. He slumped like a rug. I pulled on plastic gloves, shoved him into a plastic bag, sealed it shut, and tossed him into the bag with the main kit: leather gloves, steel wire, and a .32 pistol. Probably won't need the gun, but I always bring it. You'd be surprised how easy it is to kill someone. I stole some brown Kia and drove into town an hour before the scheduled time. According to the intermediary, I expected a dump. But parking between 2 rusty wrecks and seeing a blank facade with peeling letters reading pool, I thought I must have gotten the address wrong. She was supposed to arrive in a Mercedes, but it wasn't there. I wanted to walk in and check the door, but didn't want to risk being seen. The layout was clearly described by the intermediary. Private pool. Staff corridor behind the front desk, locked with a special key. Only one room exclusively for her. Only one entrance and exit. No windows. Not ideal. Normally, I'd have taken her somewhere else. Near her house, in a supermarket parking lot, something quick. But as he left, the intermediary touched my shoulder. "One more thing. Kill her in the room next to the pool before she touches the water. Got it? Not a drop on her skin." Another obvious signal, but this time it practically hit me over the head. Sitting in the car, I wondered why it mattered so much that she stay dry. Maybe they didn't want bloody water to drain, but then why, specifically in the room and precisely before she swims? Or maybe the client was spiteful enough to deny her the pleasure right under her nose, like Tantalus's torment. Or maybe she was like a gremlin. Add water and the monster appears. Doesn't matter. Just get the job done. After some time, the hum of ventilation and idleness began making me drowsy. I jerked awake. The Mercedes had arrived, almost overslept, damn it. A stupid mistake. Should have had another coffee, even if it was burnt. I was nervous like a rookie. Apparently, I could feel deep down that this job was strange. She stepped out without a coat, wearing a transparent robe underneath a blue and white striped bikini. Her skin was tanned beyond the season. Her leg muscles rippled softly as she stepped in sandals. I admit, it affected me. But I don't let things like that interfere. From her, I'd make a beautiful corpse. I grabbed my bag and followed her. Caught the door. Inside, it looked worse. Cracked tiles, brown grout, walls weeping moisture, towels on shelves, rags, the air pure chlorine. To the left of the counter, an open hall. Through the window, you could see a few families. To the right, the locker room. And straight behind the counter, that very corridor. She was chatting with the clerk when she noticed me. Clearly, she liked the guy. Even I could tell. "Go ahead, sir," she said, and motioned me in. Obviously, she didn't want witnesses. Sign. Adults, $12.50. I didn't feel like paying. Can I use the locker room first?" I said to both of them. "Really? Gotta go." "Sure, man." The clerk waved me off and immediately forgot about me. "Thanks, bro." I gave him the surfer sign. No idea why. The target giggled and continued talking, and I walked away. Locker room was empty. Row of broken lockers with tiny locks. Corner with urinals and a stall, opposite the showers. Perfect. Unzipped the bag, pulled out the rat. Blood frozen stiff at the bottom, limbs stiff, tail curled into its mouth. Slipped on gloves, tossed the carcass into the shower. It slapped down. Thick blood oozed out in clumps. I splattered it across the tiles. Need to keep the clerk busy longer. Tucked the gun, wire, and gloves into my waistband. Left the bag on the bench. Glanced out the window. The target finished talking and started walking back. Perfect. But suddenly she turned sharply, locking eyes with me. I froze. No flicker of emotion. She turned again and sped up down the corridor. Observant, naturally, useful for a beauty to sense perverts. Unlikely she suspected more. I stepped out, grimacing. "Hey, dude! This is my first time here, but shouldn't there not be a bloody rat in the shower?" I said. The clerk froze. "What?" "A rat, R-A-T, about the size of a fist. Looks like someone crushed it. You might need a mop." "Oh, God." He groaned. Again? Grabbing a bucket and mop, he muttered something and stormed inside. "Mind if I wait here? Hurry before the pretty lady sees it." He snorted and disappeared into the locker room. Perfect distraction. Plenty of time to slip in quietly, finish the job, and leave before he comes back. I slipped behind the counter, worried she might already be in the water, but it was too late. Better hurry. Don't want to drop the banana, as they say. Black frosted door. The kids splashing faded as I walked. All I heard was the click of the handle. It could have been locked, I thought. What an idiot I was to forget. Could have, damn rookie. But it wasn't. Shouldered the heavy door. It felt like a bank vault. I'd seen similar ones in casino offices. But a door like that without a lock? First time ever. Darkness. Darkness. Until I saw the blue shimmer of the water. The edge lit by white strips, the surface trembling like a desert mirage. Sorry for the lyricism, but the image still burns in my mind. Light from the corridor should have spilled inside, but there was no shadow of mine. Like stepping in, I had severed from the world. Now there were only me, the pool, and the target. She hadn't started swimming yet, but was close, standing with her back to me, silhouette against the blue glow. I took a breath, and for the first time, hesitated. I could have already slipped the wire around her neck, but couldn't do it. Lost rhythm. And the moment passed. She crouched, preparing to dive. "Ma'am!" I shouted, grabbing for the gun. She turned. Light from below outlined her face. Her eyes flicked to the barrel on my belt. Not a muscle moved. And before I could act, she jumped. As soon as she touched the water, everything plunged into darkness. I blinked. Thought I'd gone blind. Complete hopeless darkness. Turned to the door, nothing behind me. It had closed silently. No splash, no sound. I groped with my hands, but found no walls. It should have been behind me. I had just come in. 10, 20, 30 steps, and still nothing but emptiness. My breathing faltered. I've never feared darkness, but this was more than dark. I checked myself. Fabric of my shirt, hair, cold metal tucked at my waist. Still alive. Stopped. Needed to think. The target knew I was coming. Routine. So it was a trap. Light controlled remotely. But I hadn't seen the remote. Maybe activated with feet near the edge? Fine. And the door? Couldn't have vanished. Probably I turned and walked along the wall. So wall on my left at 90 degrees. Stretched my arm. Empty. Further left a couple steps, still nothing. Again, panic rising. I lost my bearings. Worst of all, no idea where the water was. Legs grew heavy. When I was 10, my stepdad used to take me ice fishing on a lake in winter. No cabin or heater, just ice and an auger. But some winters the ice was thin, and we stayed home. I hated it. One thin winter I decided the ice was thick enough. Took my rod and a rock to punch a hole. Nearly made it when the ice cracked. Shore was 15 yards away, but seemed miles. I crept forward, each step a fear that I'd fall through and get trapped beneath. One mistake from death. This was worse. Logically, even if I fell, I could grab the edge. But where was the edge? And the door? I stood still. Not fear. It was rational. I crouched, felt the cold tile around me, confirmed it was dry, and sat. One entrance, one exit. No lock. Let her stay. I'd get her. "Unusual," I said. It felt like the words dropped at my knees. No echo, no reply. But I continued. "I always liked the smell of a pool. Pleasant, right?" And then I realized the chlorine was gone. I couldn't smell anything, like I was in a sensory deprivation chamber. A good place to die. Quiet. Felt like an idiot. Could she hear me? Decided to shut up. The clerk must have cleaned up the rat by now. Need to plan my exit. Will I find myself in the dark, wire or hands? If I can't find the light, the clerk will eventually return, and I'll have to kill him too. If she bolts for the door, I'll see the light and catch her. "I agree," she said. I flinched. Didn't understand where the sound came from. "There you are," I said cheerfully. "Thought I'd lost you." "I thought I'd lost you too," she replied, her voice seeming to come from everywhere. "You always swim in the dark?" "Sometimes," she answered, and I thought I sensed where she was. "Try it. The water feels amazing today." "You're a quiet swimmer," I said, standing up. "Who said I was swimming?" Now it seemed like she was right in front of me. I swung a punch. Nothing. "Oh, that would have hurt," she laughed from somewhere else. Awkward. Did she see me? I couldn't hear her movement, or even my own. In my imagination, she was gliding like a sniper with night vision. Not that I nearly laughed. Suddenly light appeared. Darkness remained, but I recognized the shape. The door was opening. Against the glow, her silhouette. "Wait for me," I laughed. She'd lost. I bolted. She wouldn't close it in time. A couple steps, and water. I plunged head first. Warm, salty waves surged up my nose. Salt water. I surfaced, gasped, and started swimming toward the edge. Where was the edge? Stroke after stroke. Nothing. Water pulsed like ink. I turned around. The light was still there, and her silhouette. "Today you live with it," she sang, giggling. The light narrowed to a slit. "Wait! Wait!" I shouted, thrashing. Voice again, now like it came from inside my head. "Swim! Just try not to let it find you." I could hear her smile. Light vanished, and I was alone in darkness. Or at least I hoped I was. We had been best friends for 13 years, and in all that time, I had never spent the night at his house. "Why the sudden invitation?" I asked, slinging my travel bag over my shoulder as he held the door open. "My parents are away," he blurted out in one breath. "I thought it was time you saw my humble abode." The house wasn't humble at all. White, wooden planked. It stood as if it had always been there, while the city grew up around it. Old oaks served as guardians of the yard, their shadows falling across the grass. Inside, it smelled of old wood, polish, and something else, the scent of damp earth after rain. Leo's mother was a frail woman with a worried smile that never reached her eyes. She flitted through the half-lit rooms, anxiously offering drinks and snacks. His father sat in a leather armchair and said nothing. A large man with dark, motionless eyes watched us as we passed by. I heard her whispering to him in a quick, tense voice, but couldn't make out the words. At 7 in the evening, Leo's parents left. "So what are we going to do?" I asked, dropping my bag on the floor of his room. This room was a small island of normalcy in the house. Posters, an unmade bed, a game console in front of the TV. The only place where the breath of the dead didn't seem to linger. "Pizza, video games, everything as usual," said Leo. He knelt down and turned on the console. He moved deliberately, calmly, but the veins on his neck betrayed tension. We ate pizza, played games, and for a while, I stopped thinking about the house and the silence coiled like a snake in the other rooms. We were together, and there was only the sound coming from the speakers. Around 9, Leo paused the game. "Listen," he began, not looking at me, fidgeting with the controller. "There's one strange rule my parents have." "Strange rule?" "Yeah." He lifted his head, his eyes suddenly serious as stone. "After 9 p.m., we have to be here, in the bedroom. And we can't go out, not even to pee or get a drink. The door stays closed until dawn." I searched his face for a joke, but there wasn't one. "You're kidding, right? What if I really need to go to the bathroom?" "Go now," he snapped, nodding toward an empty bottle on the table. "And after 9, you use that." A laugh stuck in my throat died. "Dude, this is insane. Why?" He shrugged, but the gesture felt unnatural. "They are obsessed with safety. Old house, you know, drafts and all that." "Drafts." He was lying. I could see it, but didn't know why. Downstairs, the clock struck the hour and Leo flinched as if shot. Bong, bong, bong. On the 9th strike, he jumped up, went to the door, shut it, and slid the heavy steel bolt into place. The sound was final. "That's it," he whispered. Sweat appeared on his forehead. "Now we're safe." "Leo, what the hell is going on?" "Nothing. Just a weird rule," he replied, not looking at the door. He turned up the volume of the game to deafening levels, but I no longer saw the screen. Only the locked door and the cold spreading through my stomach. The house fell silent again. But this was a different silence. Listening, waiting. Something lurked in the dark heart of the house, and we waited alongside it. An hour passed. No sound came from the house. Fear gradually faded from Leo, and he played with forced calmness that clung to him like someone else's clothes. I started to feel annoyed by all this nonsense. "Your parents risk raising a serial killer with these quirks," I said. He answered with a tight smile. "Tell me about it." A soft, rhythmic thud echoed from the floorboards downstairs. "What was that?" I whispered. Leo kept playing, staring at the screen, fingers pressing buttons as if he hadn't heard a thing. "Forget it. The house settles." "This isn't the house, Leo." The tapping stopped. In the ringing silence, I could hear my own pulse. Then a new sound emerged. A scraping and dragging along the wood, as if something bulky was pulling itself forward on broken legs. I turned off the TV. "Okay, now that definitely isn't the house," I said. Leo put the controller on the carpet. His face had gone pale in the glow of the screen. "Just ignore it. Please. It'll go away if we don't pay attention." "What? What will go away?" Before he could answer, a voice came from the hallway, barely audible through the door. "Leo? Sweetie?" I froze. It was his mother speaking. "Leo, sweetheart, your father and I came back early. I brought warm cookies for you. Open the door." I looked at Leo and saw a face carved from wax. He stared at the door like it was the gates of hell, pressed a trembling finger to his lips, and shook his head. "Leo, it's your mom," I whispered. "Don't be silly, honey. We're already inside," continued the voice, now right at the door. "I baked your favorite chocolate chip. They're cooling." The scraping downstairs stopped. All that remained was the sweet coaxing in the dead house. But something was wrong. The voice carried an awful perfection, as if it were a memory of a voice, not the voice itself. Then came the knocking. Soft, wet, as if meat were being slapped against wood. "Leo? Liam? Are you okay? You're so quiet." "Leo," I mouthed silently. He sat on the floor, frozen into stone, his eyes begging without words. The doorknob turned, once to the left, once to the right, then rattled with growing fury. "Boys, this isn't funny," the voice cracked, sweetness replaced by a ragged harshness. "Open the door." The door shuddered under a blow so hard the frame groaned inside the wall. I crawled on all fours to the opposite wall. The voice changed, lower, bubbling as if thick liquid filled its throat. "I know you are there." The wet knocking resumed, faster, more convulsive. From under the door, black viscous fluid flowed into the room, thick as oil, smelling of graveyards, damp earth, and rot. Leo stirred. He crawled onto the bed, pulled the blankets over himself, and became a trembling ball. He had retreated into his own darkness. The creature behind the door fell silent, but I knew it hadn't left. It was waiting. I sat leaning against the wall, watching the door. My breathing was ragged. Leo under the blanket was a bundle of fear. Curiosity, which had gotten me killed before, battled with horror. I needed to see. I rose, walked on tiptoe, and the floorboards didn't creak. "Liam, no," Leo hissed from under the blanket. "Don't look." But I did look. I knelt, approached the keyhole. At first I saw the dim hallway and the moonbeam slicing through the darkness. Then it stepped into view. It was neither human nor beast. A creature assembled from sticks and shadow, impossibly tall and thin, limbs like winter tree branches, body swirling dust and night without shape. It wore Mrs. Leo's floral apron tied around the emptiness where its chest should be. On its head, a tangle of darkness, sat the father's hunting hat. There was no face, only void. In one wooden hand, it held the family portrait I'd seen on the wall. Holding it before its face, the creature mimicked the mother's smile. With the other branch-like limb, it knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. I recoiled, clamping my hand over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. My mind refused to accept what I'd seen. This was not some creature that had invaded the house. This was the house itself, a parasite wrapped in trophies, objects belonging to the dead or doomed. A whisper came from the door, and my blood froze. "Liam, why are you hiding? Mommy is so worried." It spoke in my mother's voice, perfectly, like when I was sick as a child, like the call to dinner from a life I could never return to. A wave of longing and terror washed over me. I wanted to go home, but I was not home. The creature laughed with a brittle crunch, the sound of fallen leaves on stone. It sensed my soft flesh. "Let me in, Liam," the voice whispered, full of love and poison. "I'll take you home." I slid down the wall, feeling hot shame where my body had betrayed me. I remembered the bottle. That wasn't humor. It was mercy. He knew. A slow scraping returned to the door, like a claw sharpening itself against wood. And all the while, my mother's voice promised peace, if only I would slide the bolt. Hours dragged on. The creature never fell silent, shifting voices, living and unknown, offering warmth, food, and end to the night, scraping endlessly with mad patience. Fear burned away, leaving bitter anger. At the monster. At people who built a cage for it and called it home. At the boy hiding under blankets. Hours passed. "Leo," I rasped. "Leo, wake up." A figure stirred in the bed. He peeked from the fabric fortress, red-eyed. "Did it leave?" he whispered. "No," I snapped. "I need to know what it is. No more lies." He flinched, sat up, hugging his knees, staring at the door. "I don't know," he muttered. "We call it the Night One. It's been here as long as our family has." And he told me, haltingly in the darkness. Great-grandfather built the house on unholy ground, and from the very first night, evil took root in the wooden walls. A silent pact was made. During the day, the house belonged to the family, but from 9 p.m. to sunrise, it belonged to the other. "It gets lonely," Leo whispered. A tear rolled down his cheek. "It plays, imitates people, uses things to build a body for itself. The apron, the hat, the portrait. But it's getting bolder." His voice trembled. "Before, it just made noise. Now it tries to come in. Rules mean less now. Staying in the room, not looking, not listening. It doesn't help anymore. It needs more." He met my gaze, and in it was a well of guilt. It needs someone new. The icy truth gripped my heart. The sudden invitation. The fear in his parents' eyes. The heavy bolt. You brought me for it?" "No." "I didn't want to," he burst out. "My parents said it was getting stronger, that it wouldn't be satisfied with just us anymore. If we gave it someone else, maybe it would leave us alone, just for a while." He had brought me, like a sacrificial lamb. His parents hadn't left. They were sitting locked in a room, praying the monster would choose me. And then the scraping stopped. The whispering died. The house fell silent in a way that felt like the earth had stopped spinning. What's happening? I exhaled. Leo's eyes widened. Footsteps came from below. Heavy. Step, drag, no pretense. The game was over. The footsteps stopped outside the door. 3 beats of silence. Then a crash like thunder. The door cracked, the bolt screeched. Crack! A web of cracks spread from the lock. Wood splinters rained down. "This has never happened before," Leo sobbed, crawling into the corner. "It's never broken the door! Crack! Bam!" The bolt tore free. The door swung open with a drawn-out groan. In the black doorway, I saw it. Not emptiness anymore, it had filled itself. The body, a grotesque construct of objects from the house. Shin bones made of floorboards, arms from rusted pipes, torso, a cage made from stair railings, and in its center pulsed my bag, like a foreign dark heart. Its head was the grandfather clock. The pendulum behind the glass darted wildly like a crazed eye. From within the clock, a chorus of voices spoke in unison. "Time is up!" The door swayed pitifully, and the creation born of the house's bones stepped in. Wood and metal scraped, the air filled with the smell of sawdust and grave damp. Leo screamed, but the sound drowned in the monster's roar. Animal terror engulfed me. I grabbed a glass trophy from the table and threw it. It shattered against the clock. Shards sparkled. The creature recoiled. 1,000 clocks chimed their last hour. For a moment, an opportunity. "The window!" I shouted, pulling Leo by the hand. But the latch wouldn't budge. The frame had been painted shut. The beast recovered. The pendulum gleamed with pieces of moonlight. It raised its pipe arm for a blow. "The bed! Help me!" I yelled. Adrenaline revived Leo. We overturned the heavy bed, making a fragile barrier. The creature charged, got tangled in the sheets, roared, and began tearing apart the mattress. We were cornered, the stubborn window behind us. "The sun," Leo rasped, his wild eyes fixed on the sky. "Only the sun. It must stay inside until dawn." The sky was black. We had no hours left. The creature broke free from the scraps. It moved slowly. It knew we were trapped. It raised its claw hand, twisted from cutlery. That's when I noticed a powerful flashlight behind the TV. One last desperate thought. I grabbed the flashlight. The creature loomed closer, the stench of dust and grave earth sharp in my nose. I clicked it on. A beam of white light struck the clock. It howled. The light didn't burn, it unraveled it. The spoon claw disintegrated, the board leg cracked. Light was poison to this flesh, covering its face with a pipe. It recoiled into shadow. The longest vigil began. I held the beam like a sword. It was the only thing holding back the darkness. Leo trembled behind me. The batteries drained. Strength left my arm. The creature lunged. I repelled it with light. It hissed in the dark. So the hours dragged on. The beam weakened to a faint yellow. "It's dying," I rasped. "Just a little longer," Leo pleaded, staring at the window. "Just a little longer." The creature sensed it. As the light faded, it gathered itself and charged. At that exact moment, a gray streak of dawn appeared on the horizon. The monster froze, then began to fall apart. The clock turned to dust. The pipes crashed, the railing unwound. Silver splinters, my bag collapsed into a pile of junk. Only a thin layer of gray dust with a graveyard smell remained. Sunlight flooded the ruined room. I lay there, gasping for air. Leo sobbed against the wall, a mix of relief and terror. We survived. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. The parents' bedroom door opened. Moments later, they stood in the doorway. They didn't look at the wreckage, nor at the pile of trash, only at me. And in their gaze, there was no joy, only bottomless disappointment. The horror wasn't over. I understood. The plan had failed. The sacrifice wasn't made. The house creature would be hungry when night came again. I was the one who managed to escape, and they would never forgive me for that.
The story is over, but silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes the scariest part begins when you think it's all behind you. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment what story you'd like to hear next. And remember, fear isn't just a feeling. Sometimes it stares back at you from the darkness.